We're here for a special Clean Tech Talk podcast and video discussion where 5 CleanTechnica writers are going to discuss our 2022 CleanTechnica Car of the Year finalists or nominees and sort of, put in our 2 cents or our $200 worth of words on why we think one or the other should be the winner. So without further ado, I'm not going to start with my pick, which I'm sure you can't guess if you're watching this and looking at my background. But we'll start from I'm just going to start from the right of my screen here on the panel, and that's Paul Foss, who has not been writing enough with us, actually. So you might not even know who Paul is, but he's got a very busy job after getting a promotion at his software company.
I'm an IT manager now, and I say I got a little more pay and a lot more work, but I am enjoying it. But not as much as I enjoy spending time with you guys. So I guess for me it's the Bolt, and if I think back to kind of some of my formative years back 2017 2018, where it was like the Model 3 versus the Bolt, and they were both kind of going for the 35,000. The Model 3 kind of gave up that fight and went up to the 45 and obviously more expensive price bracket. It went, if you think of a fighter, it gained more weight and went to the heavyweight round, where the Bolt lost, although it has lost its tax credit, this year. It certainly, might get it next year. Nobody knows. But but it's actually kind of gone down into the 20s, and, with some tax credits, it could even be below 20. So I guess I'm arguing it's a very US centric view. But I think price matters. And it's certainly a big brand in the US. It's not, some weird Chinese brand that US customers would be afraid of. So that's my view.
I think I'll play the role of host, and I'll give like one challenging question to each of you in response. So I love your take on it lowering the costs. My question is, how many is GM Chevrolet really willing to make? Because I mean, there's the potential, and then there's the commitment. What do you think on that? Do you think they are willing to make this a mass market vehicle if there's the demand with the lower cost?
Yeah, that is kind of the $64,000 question. I will say, as much flack as Mary has gotten for claiming to be the leader and not being the leader, I would say she's willing to do it. The question is she able to do it? All incentives are, if she could make $1 million, I think she would, because it'd be great for her PR, whether she made money on them or not. She gets a lot of flack in the community for, being called the leader by Biden, but, not really deserving that. So I know that's a pretty vague answer, but
giving a political response.
I got.
That's fine. That's fine. Martin Winkhausen. So I'll just also preface this. We've done this award for years, and we're a US centric website, but not completely. Like 50% of our readers are in the US and 50% are elsewhere, which doesn't really create a big pool anywhere. But we have the second biggest would be if you combine Europe, all together. I think, and there are different markets: the US market, the European market, the Chinese market, and it just became very hard to do a global vehicle in this case. And we've decided we're going to launch a European Car of the Year, CleanTechnica European Car of the Year award competition as well soon after this. We're not doing China, probably, even though it's the biggest market, even though it's bigger than the rest of the world combined, but maybe we'll get into it. It's just we don't really have a lot of Chinese readers. We're not on their search engines like we are and there's not as many people read the English press from there, I guess. But long story short, we will have a European version of this awards. Martin is Dutch, is in Europe, and will but he's providing his European perspective, as is Conan, on this award from watching these markets extensively for years as well, and having a good outsider's view as well, not just living here amidst the truck culture. Martin, what do you think?
I think that Tesla has done a marvelous job in a few states of the United States, and the real Americans, as some call it, is still a truck country with pickups, and to move the needle, really, you have to switch pickups to electric. And a year ago, Rachel Maddow did have a 15-18 minute special on the announcement of the F-150. What an unbelievable big event it was. What an influential event. It's by far the most sold model in the United States was electric. And I think that when you look at price, and the still about below 40 for the Pro version, that has to do the work, and around 60 for the kindergarten shopping version that is more popular in the suburbs. This one can turn a large part of the United States, especially the states where Tesla is not the favorite. So looking at price, looking at influence, looking at transition, in my view, there is no competition for the F-150 for car of the year.
Yeah, I'm supposed to have a pushback question, but you picked the one I'm picking. So, but no, my question is, I guess my pushback question, is it really? I have a good pushback question because it came from a reader. A reader commented that the top conquest sales for the F-150 Lightning are 2 Tesla models, and I think a Ram pickup or Chevy pickup truck. So the buyers of the F-150 Lightning, a lot of them are coming from Tesla Model X or Tesla Model 3. Those were 2 of the top 3. So is it really changing the game, or is it just stealing EV fanatics from Tesla?
There are not many conquest sales in the pickup branch. The F-150 is sold to previous F-150 owners, and there are an unbelievable number of them, and that is the market that is going to switch. And after a year, I expect many conquest sales from the GMC and the Chevrolet Teste Silverado pickup.
That's a better response than mine. That's a good point. There's the bulk are not conquest sales. My thought too was that to get one of these, you had to reserve it very early. Like anyone who has one right now reserved it like right away, and there's a big backlog of people who want one. And I think the EV fanatics who follow every news thing, they were the first to reserve probably, and a lot of them had Teslas. Whereas people who really want one but have to wait months or a year or something, maybe are not coming from maybe they need a little more time, or they weren't right on top of the reserve button because they don't have years of practice with this. And maybe that's the case. But anyway, you had a really good response there. They really should be, coming from Ford already. So moving on to Steve Hanley, famous for his claims of where our headquarters is and what it entails. One of our favorite things among the writers is what Steve pops into articles about, I don't know, olive desserts and olive snacks and kiwi drinks and rooftop pools and all this wonderful stuff we would like to think are at CleanTechnica headquarters. But Steve,
it's a wonderful place to be. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's your choice? What's your pick? Sorry.
Well, I'm going to hedge a little bit. I personally think that the Bolt EUV and Bolt sedan, as they are hugely important. You raised the question of how many is Chevrolet actually willing to make, and I have not had lunch with Mary Barra lately, so I can't say. But it does seem uh, Chevrolet has been and General Motors have been doing a lot of advertising lately. Those of us who watch football have noticed that there are some commercials on during primetime football games from General Motors featuring all of their electric cars, some of which are available, some of which are in the pipeline. Um, the 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 thing about the Bolt that I think is important is the price. The price of electric cars in America today is just staggering for a lot of people, and they're going up rather than down. We who are hang out in CleanTechnica's carbon fiber headquarters somewhere in cyberspace, we have been telling people for years, oh, just wait, the price is going to tumble and things are going to get cheaper, and it's not happening. It's going the other way. The only car that's getting cheaper is the Chevy Bolt. I don't know how they're doing it. These are cars that started off when they first came out 4 or 5 years ago. The model that I wanted was 42 or $43,000. Now I can buy that car today for 29,000, and potentially at some point in the not too distant future, get a $7,500 tax rebate. I mean, that's really remarkable. Um, the Bolt has a couple of small things that militate against it. Its maximum charging speed is not very good. If I'm correct, I believe 50 kilowatts is the most you can do, which means it's not all that terrific if you're making a. I have a neighbor here that lives in my community that lives in Wisconsin and commutes and drives to Florida twice a year, and they will tell you quite honestly that they spend a fair amount of time on the side of the road charging their Bolt on the way down, more so than we who own Teslas and are used to 30-minute recharges would need. But still, the typical use of a car today is not going back and forth from LA to New York City and back 3 or 4 times a month. It's going to soccer, it's going to work, it's going to the grocery store, and for that, the Bolt is a brilliant car. My heart of hearts, I think that the Ford F-150 Lightning is um, well, it's a bomb that's been thrown into the middle of what we always assumed was red state America. Here's this electric truck. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. Who ever heard of such a thing? And I do think it's going to alter public perception of what electric cars are. The thing that will be really interesting is if and when the Cybertruck ever gets into production, to see how many people who have expressed interest in the Cybertruck actually go out and buy a Ford because it looks like a truck.
Good comment, Steve. It was really hard to think of pushback again on the Bolt EUV, but I, in a similar vein, so why would GM be dropping the price so much if there was a lot of demand for it? Like, and I'll just bring up I have the US EV sales chart for the third quarter here, and the Bolt was, if you combine the EV and the EUV, it was the third best-selling electric vehicle in the US in the third quarter, only behind the Model Y, Tesla Model Y, and Tesla Model 3, which were, worlds ahead. But it was third then. So I was like, oh look, Chevy's, picking up steam here. But then I noticed it was still a little under 15,000 for the quarter, which would translate to about 60,000 sales for the year, which is still a pretty low number. So why drop the price if there's demand, and if there's not demand, is it really as compelling as it as it is thought to be?
Well, that's really the key question, Zachary. Everybody says they want an inexpensive electric car. Here it is, people. Who's raising their hand? Who's stepping up? Who's saying, "Yep, that's what I've been waiting for"? Or is everybody waiting for their opportunity to buy a Lucid or a BMW or a Mercedes EQS or some other premium brand? And I don't have the answer to that question. Logically, this car should be flying off dealer lots.
Well, just since putting out that question for pushback, a couple of thoughts did come to mind, which one is, maybe people don't really realize it's out there at this low price. Like maybe, I feel like it's probably well known that EVs are expensive. And, as Paul highlighted, the Bolt and the Model 3 used to be the same. And now the Bolt is far less and the Model 3 is more expensive. So perhaps people aren't aware of these changes yet and just need word of mouth. And then also, the market's, been struggling, and, it's the lower end models that sort of struggle more in a tough economy, whereas, rich people can always rich. So they can always buy their vehicles. I mean, they might suffer on the stock market, but they still have money to buy whatever vehicle they want. So I think maybe those are some explanations, but I don't know. Kanan, also in the Netherlands, in Europe. Actually, Martin and Kanan are both in the Netherlands. Probably could bike to each other. I don't know. Yeah, but also, tremendous worldview and following all the markets. So I'm curious to hear your take as well, and I hope it's going to be different.
Oh yeah, absolutely different. And I'm actually going to start with the card that I would definitely not vote for, but you guys talked about the most, the Bolt, because I actually did a bit of research before we started here. The numbers don't look all that good since since the GM refreshed their Bolt lineup. Basically, as far as I understand, they've basically only sold 30,000 of them. Their capacity for 2022 is going to be about 40 or 44,000 vehicles. And for next year, they do want to increase it significantly to 70,000 vehicles. So by numbers, that's good. But I just can't support a car that only charges at a speed of 50 kilowatt. You guys were asking, why has the price gone down?
We should just pause for a moment. Conan works at Fastned, a fast charging company, and has extensive experience with EVs. With EVs and EV charging. No, I'm just saying that this is something that you have a lot of experience with and a lot of knowledge about.
I promise that's not specifically tainting my view. Also, actual experience of trying to drive around and being limited by that kind of charging speed. Because I actually drove the European version of the Bolt, which is the Opel Ampera E. So I didn't exactly drive the Bolt, but basically the closest thing to it, because that's the same platform. But being limited by that kind of charging speed is quite debilitating. And there are better options. For example, here we have the Opel Corsa E, which is basically the same kind of price as the Bolt, but it can charge, I think, 80 or 100. Same goes for the Fiat 500 electric. So, and you guys were asking, why has the price for the Bolt gone down? To me, it seems fairly simple, actually. They designed a state-of-the-art car back in the day when the original Bolt launched. And now instead of let's design the most modern, newest, best car we can, they're like, hey, we can probably redesign it a bit and make it much cheaper now the technology is advanced. That's what seems to have happened in my eyes, at least. But
who are you picking? You forgot to say.
I'll get to that in a second. I'll get to that in a moment. So I wanted to quickly mention the F-150. I didn't drive it, but I did drive the Mach-E. Internally, in a lot of ways, it is different. So it is definitely a pretty great car. And I do see why some of you guys would definitely vote for that. The US, the pickups are very popular in the US. And so this could definitely be a game changer. I'm not sure if we've seen that action yet, but it definitely has the potential, as does the Cybertruck. But you're asking who I was going to vote for. I actually wanted to ask you guys for a bit of help because I'm having a hard time choosing between the Kia EV6 and the Ioniq 5. I've tested both of them, and the Kia actually much more extensively. Surprisingly, it has probably the second best autopilot when it comes to navigating turns and predicting how the lane is going to move. So if you have a sharp corner, the Kia and Hyundai, which is based the same platform, are the only ones that are able to stay within the lane without dropping out, unlike the system, the Blue Cruise, I think it was called, from Ford, or any of the others. But also the charging speed, again, is like up to basically 200 kilowatt, which is enormous. Also, the Kia EV6 launched basically in the same time as the Bolt refresh, and in that time it has already sold 70,000 worldwide, so twice as much. Also more effect on the whole world. I do have some issues with the Kia though. It's a bit impractical, some of the user interfaces inside. There's literally a button that you need to click in order to change the knob from the volume to the heater. And that is just confusing as hell. So it's a bit hard to support something that's has an issue like that. Fun fact for those who didn't know, it also has a full plug. So if you want to, for example, put your laptop to charge, or even a water cooker, you can actually plug it into a 220 volt outlet inside the car, like a regular normal outlet, which is also hella cool. I mean, the F-150 has that too, but you know, that's slightly different case. And the last thing going for the Kia is that it has more range than the Ioniq 5. I don't know, what do you guys think about those two vehicles? Because I'm having a hard time choosing between them.
Well, I thought they should have been combined for voting since they're the same platform. So I guess that's a cop out, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
No, that's a good
that
argument,
also
Paul. And I
increased
was
the
actually
sales
going to speak along those
significantly.
lines, not expecting anyone to bring that up, but I'll talk about that in a minute.
Well, as far as I understand it, and we know they're essentially the same car. They're like a Pontiac and a Chevrolet. I mean, they're based on the same architecture. The Kia is a little bit lower, and the Ioniq 5 has a little more cargo room. It's a little boxier. My wife and I saw an EV6 on the highway this summer, and it's impressive. It's a very nice looking car. It does not look like anything else on the road. It looks racy. It looks sporty. It looks kind of futuristic. Um, for if it were me, I would probably like the Ioniq 5 because I'm old and I don't bend very easily, and it's the taller car, which is why we bought the Model Y instead of the Model 3. It's just easier for old arthritic people like me to get in and out of. But if I was a younger person, I would be all over that EV6. That is a great looking car. Um, the problem that I have with Hyundai and Kia both is that I live in Florida. Try and find one.
Well, okay. I'll just say that they should have been probably combined, and I'll get to that in a minute. But for the time being, I thought the EV6 would win out more because you get a lot more range for almost the same price at the base level. I think they both look stunning. They're both really fun and futuristic. I don't know about elsewhere, but here, the EV6 has a really fun commercial with this robot dog. I think it was launched during the Super Bowl. Yeah, it was all over. It was on several times during the Super Bowl, and it's like this robot dog, this really fun, cute robot dog is there, and it tries to jump to the car from like up high and lands and dies out of, like, runs out of battery or something, and then the owners of the EV6 are charging it through the EV6, and it's just a fun, cute commercial with a cute little robot dog and the EV6. And I just think it's a really futuristic, fun car, and looks like that. The Ioniq 5 as well. I just thought the EV6 would win because of more range, but I will say, I'll reveal right now a little bit for people who made it this far. The Ioniq 5 has 19% of the vote, and the EV6 has about 12.5% of the vote. So the Ioniq 5 is winning with the EV6, which I would not have expected. But I also think it comes down to which one do you like more? What do you like the look of more? And the height thing you mentioned. If you combine them, they're at about 32%, and they would be close to number one, but not quite. So it's an interesting kind of, you know, was it fair to split them up and split the vote? I mean, this is like, it's like a third party candidate splitting the vote in politics. So I feel like we didn't do them justice, and maybe we should have combined them. But I do think they're really compelling. My pushback question, or let Martin jump in first, then I have a pushback question for Kanan before he's forced to choose one. I forgot that you didn't choose, and I already told you the percentages.
Oops.
You spoiled the. I was just looking at the EV database. In my head, there was a standard range and a long range Ionic, and only long range Kia that explained the price difference. But they both have a 54 and then a 74 battery. So that's the same. No, but I also thought that it should have been one car because it's one platform and it's just two. No, it's two different cars, but very much alike. You should not place both in a 5-member shortlist because they never the third party spoiling the election. So yes, make it a 4-horse race, and then we have better.
And you would choose which one? If you were forced?
There's for me are the same. That is, I think the Kia is my favorite.
Yeah, I was, you know, I would say I've never really considered much selling my Tesla Model 3, but I've considered it a little bit with these. Like, I've thought about a little bit, hey, I could sell this, get a good deal. And I was initially thinking a Kia EV6. It just was a little more appealing, more attractive to me with the longer range. But now I've gone back and forth even between them because I like them both a lot. The percentage chance of buying one and selling the Tesla is very low, but it's there. It's not zero. So it's these cars are really compelling, I think. But the pushback question, Kanan, are Hyundai and Kia really serious about selling a lot of these? Again, it's a similar deal. There's a lot of interest in them. They're not. I have seen them around my area, both of them, but very little. But you know, they're not as widely available as some other EVs. And while Hyundai and Kia keep making really compelling, attractive EVs that EV fans love, I don't feel like they ramp up production nearly as much as they could. And it's something that upsets me, sort of irritates me about Hyundai and Kia, that I don't think they're trying as hard as they should. So what's your response to that? And then which one are you going to pick?
Are they trying as hard as they should? That's a bit of a difficult question. What I can say is that I've definitely seen the Kia EV6 on the roads quite a lot this past year. The numbers of them is really, and they're very easy to spot on the back, the Kia EV6, the taillight. They're so unique, like from a far distance, like there's one. It's just so easy to see. And I do feel like they are producing a lot, but of course in the Netherlands where I live, the statistics of how many EVs are sold per, I don't know, average citizen is much higher than almost anywhere else in Europe, except maybe Norway. So are they taking it seriously enough? They definitely probably could do more, but they're also making more models. It seems that they are surprised by how well the Kia EV6 and the Ioniq 5 and now upcoming Ioniq 6 has been selling with this platform. So I do see them becoming more serious, just again, possibly not serious enough just yet, but it's progress, right?
Which one are you going to choose at the end of the day?
You know, I think long and hard I've been thinking about this, but the Ioniq 5 just looks cooler. I don't need the extra range that the EV6 has or the huge amount of extra cargo or passenger space. I would just go for the Ioniq 5. It's cooler.
That's cool. That's a good response. Martin, you have your hand up too?
Yes, because your question was, is Kia, is Hyundai Kia serious? And I remember when they started with the Ioniq the first, they made a model that will have a gas light hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and fuel cell. Only the fuel cell was not available, so the few crazy people who wanted an electric, let's make a few dozen for them. And they were sold, and oh, the market is growing because we thought we had fulfilled the market and there's more. And so they increased. And that year they doubled their production goal twice. And so at that time, they keep on increasing, and they still believe that the future is full cell, but yeah.
Just interject quickly,
As the
that
market
original one was
asks-
25 kilowatt hours. So
Yeah, like many taxis were that great
Yeah.
car. But as long as the market asks, they try to fulfill the market demand if they see it.
Right.
So they
They're
have
not-
a problem with batteries because they didn't foresee it, didn't expect it. They have no long-term contracts, but they are doing all they can to fulfill the market demand for their cars.
Yeah, it's
And
good.
that is something that not many other companies.
You don't see them fighting the transition. They might be slow, but they don't fight it like some companies do and some CEOs do. So I think that's a good point. So it's my turn, and yeah, as I think it's clear, I've picked the Ford F-150 Lightning. I just, I mean, of course, I see pickup trucks all around me. I know the F-150 has at times been the top selling vehicle in the world based on just how many are sold in the US because of that. I see, you know, so many people buy them that for all different reasons. And having a really good electric option is phenomenal. I've interviewed a lot of people for our Clean Tech Talk podcast, fleet charging people, battery people, and I've had a number of people say to me that they've heard a lot of interest for the F-150 Lightning, that they've been hearing, especially the fleet charging people. They're like, yeah, a lot of people are really into this, like I've seen for nothing else. Maybe a Tesla in the broad market, but for this kind of thing, have not seen anyone, any model get highlighted so much or so strongly by people. So I think there is an enormous amount of interest and demand that wasn't there before for other EVs. I think it changes the market. Some will maybe jump to the Cybertruck, but I think, and a lot of people are, of course, the Cybertruck will do well, but I think there's a lot of people who just want a normal quote truck that's electric, and then it comes with so many features. So I talked about this before. The Ford team was very slow to get into EVs, but once they got into EVs, Jim Farley put together a great small group of people. They called it Team Edison, and they said, just make the best EVs you can. Blank, like, here you go, you're free to do whatever. And they used their biggest names, Mustang, F-150. They did phenomenal vehicles with all kinds of features. The F-150 Lightning has already been highlighted several times for its backup vehicle to load, vehicle to home capabilities, and how much people are really enthusiastic about that ability. And I think that's going to be bigger and bigger, and it's going to really, I mean, I just went through one of the 10 biggest hurricanes to hit the US. So it's like, you know, I'm in a special situation, but still, I think it's a feature that's going to have a lot of impact. And I think the demand, the interest, even pushes Tesla at times. And they doubled their production target a year ago or something. So it's about 150,000 a year, I think, is their target. But I expect that could even double in the next couple of years if they get their batteries lined up. So overall, I just think it changes the image and the atmosphere around EVs. It tells people, oh yeah, even the Ford F-150 can be electric and it can be great. And people who maybe brushed off Tesla, brushed off other EVs, they're like, oh wow, Ford's even doing it with the F-150 electric, and people love it. I love that you can spot it. The headlights are really cool looking, and you can spot it on the road. I've spotted a couple now, and then you look for that lightning badge on the back to confirm that you're not crazy. But it looks great for a truck. I'm not a truck person at all. It's not the one I would buy, but I would say after the storm, I thought, man, it would be really nice to have. Or during the hurricane, I was like, man, I wish I had a Lightning right now. So it is appealing.
You couldn't plug in your Tesla, Zachary?
Yeah, you can charge a Tesla with it. We had a YouTube video of our YouTube guys did that. They charged their Tesla with it. I interviewed someone for our podcast, Aaron Smith, also who used it in Michigan when the power went out, And he sort of noted too that it's like having like 7 or 8 Tesla Powerwalls or something. There's a lot of battery capacity there. He charged like everything he needed, then some neighbors, then some other neighbors, home appliances and stuff. And it was like nothing had been used. And there's so much capacity there. And you think, oh, but you might want that for driving. Well, when you need it for backup power, you don't really need it for driving. You're sort of just like in place, like for the most part. I mean, it depends on the situation. Anyway, long story short, I picked the F-150 Lightning, and I will reveal more details on where the voting stands right now for people who made it through all of us giving our thoughts. The Lightning is winning. At the beginning, I think the Bolt was winning, or it was close. I think it was winning, but the Lightning pulled ahead. It's got 34.5%, more or less 34.41%, and that is a little bit more than the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 combined, which were about 32%. The Bolt EUV is technically in second with 22%, and it's not going to catch up to Lightning, I don't think, but it had a strong start, and then it just slowed down. And then the Rivian R1T, just a note since nobody's mentioned it, it's a great vehicle. It's got 12%. It's not really, it's very expensive. It was actually in the nominees last year, I realized, but it had a very low result. The thing is, it was delayed coming to market. So technically it was supposed to be eligible last year, and I forgot that it was even included because it didn't do very well, and it was delayed, and it ended up it hit the market in this eligibility cycle, and I said, well, let's go ahead and leave it in, and it's not as competitive. But the last thing I'll say before final comments from all of you, so if you combine the F-150 Lightning and the R1T, you're at about 46%. And if you combine the three cars, you're at about 54%. So there's a case to say that this is a rigged vote, and it's not really fair having 3 cars and 2 trucks, and we're splitting the vote on the cars. I don't know. We have a lot of winners, I would say. So that's my final conclusion. We'll go backwards, or go back to Paul, and we'll go back across the line there for any final comments on those results, or which are not final, but I don't think it's going to change enough by the end.
I do have a few comments. I will say the comments on the Ford F-150 I do come in here with an open mind, and I think maybe you even got me to switch my vote, as opposed to politics, where I'm not as open-minded. I am pretty open-minded on EVs. I did grow up in rural Iowa, so the things Martin said, is very true. And one of the things we need to get going is what we have already going with Tesla. You need to get one person in the neighborhood to have one, and then they sell their 2 neighbors or their 2 relatives, and then they sell 4, and then they sell 8. And that exponential never started in mid-America. And if this can start it, that is important. Another thing nobody brought up, that sometimes the F-150 is criticized because nobody gave you a pushback question, but that is it's not a ground up design. It was just slapped into the other. And you know what? If you don't compare it to a ground up design, it doesn't really matter. It beats all the gas cars, and that's all that matters. Electric is so superior, you don't have to be the optimal electric to be better than gas. So I think that's kind of an interesting point. And then I wanted to make a couple points back on the Kia Hyundai. And I wanted to say, we sometimes compare all these to Model 3 and Model Y Tesla, but we got to remember Tesla's got a different strategy. That is, make a lot of 2 cars, and everybody else has a strategy of make 20 or 30 cars. So it's not totally fair. We also have to say that they have a little bit of Toyota in them, not the complaining to the governments, but they make some good plug-in hybrids and hybrids. So if you go on a total carbon and give them at least a little credit for that, that counts for something. They had, I think they had a little bit of a handicap with LG Chem and some recalls and some fires. You gotta weigh that into it. And then you gotta weigh the Korean government. That's been, with their pushing hydrogen and everything, that's a real handicap they've had to overcome. So with all those handicaps, you got to give Hyundai and Kia a little more credit than maybe we do. And I've been a fan of Hyundai since 1984, so I'm a big fan.
I thought you were going to say with Toyota, like they're known for reliability, good cost, good efficiency, and they bring that to the EV game. Well, I thought that's where you were going with.
That's true too. There's many ways to look at it.
Yeah, but all great points, superb points. Martin.
I think I have said everything I want to say at this moment.
Okay, cool.
That's great.
That's fine. We've talked a lot. Steve, do you have any final comments on any of this?
I do. Drive an electric, be happy.
You need more. No, I'm just kidding. That's a great ending. Anan, I know you got more thoughts on it. You must.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. My thoughts are actually on the F-150. It is, I mean, I haven't actually driven the F-150, like I've only have the experience with the Mach-E, but yet again, if you look at both of those vehicles, they're the only other ones to, for example, offer a front trunk. If you look at other electric SUVs, they don't. Not the new EQS SUV from Mercedes, not the iX from BMW. The fact that they managed to get that into their cars, and they really managed to create some really awesome products with, like you said, with this Team Edison that they put together. It's definitely quite impressive. So my original vote was basically something between the Kia or the Hyundai Ioniq, but you guys seem to be split between the F-150 and the Bolt. So I would definitely say if I needed to choose between those two, I would go for the F-150 because they did actually make a really, really good product, and that's worth commending, actually.
I would just leave to, it's 46% for the pickups. So, the F-150 is far in, it's sort of like this far in the lead, but it could be a car if it was a one-on-one head off. I was gonna not say anything else, but Paul stimulated some more thoughts too, and just your comment about how we need those neighbors to sell neighbors and get exponential growth there. And I was thinking with the F-150, where you were going to go was, the vehicle to load, the vehicle to home capabilities, and then what Conan brought up, the mega frunk. That frunk is ridiculous. Like, those are the kind of things that just get people to say, oh yeah, maybe I do want an electric. And then the fuel efficiency on an electric pickup versus a gas pickup is a huge bonus. I mean, you spend a lot of money on fuel in a non-electric pickup. So I think those three things could just make it an exponential neighbor to neighbor seller. And again, I think they knocked it out of the park. But I think all of these cars, like, we're in a good era. We have really good contenders now, and anyone could win. It's really compelling. Thank you all for chiming in. We'll still publish the results when they're finalized, and I think we have to do more of these. Maybe try to make this a regular thing about different topics, because this is really fun. This is really cool. I like this. And we have writers who couldn't make it today last minute, but Jennifer and Carolyn and Joe. So all right, thank you all. Bye.